Updated November 4, 2017 162,609 United States President Donald Trump will meet Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull in Asia this month, the White House has confirmed. Key points: Donald Trump and Malcolm Turnbull will meet in the Philippines. Trump today arrived in Hawaii. He is looking for help to pressure North Korea to stand down a nuclear crisis. Mr. Trump has arrived in Hawaii ahead of his 12-day Asian tour, which was extended to include the East Asia Summit in the Philippines after Mr. Trump was criticized for his plans to skip it. Mr. Trump will hold bilateral meetings with Mr. Turnbull while they are in Manila, the White House said. Earlier this year, the two had a testy phone call over a refugee deal between Australia and the US. However, when they met in May, Mr. Trump shrugged off suggestions of any tensions, calling it a little bit of fake news. The Hawaii visit marks the start of the longest trip to Asia by an American president in more than a quarter of a century, with Mr. Trump looking for help to pressure North Korea to stand down from a nuclear crisis. After Air Force One landed at Joint Base Hickam, Mr. Trump and his wife, Melania, were draped with traditional lei necklaces. Mr. Trump went on to nearby Camp Smith for a classified briefing from Pacific Command military leaders that officials expected would touch on North Korea and other areas. He also paid a solemn visit to Pearl Harbor and the USS Arizona Memorial for the U.S. sailors killed when Japan bombed the American naval base on December 7, 1941. It was Mr. Trump's first visit to the memorial, where he and the First Lady laid a wreath and tossed white flower petals into the waters above the battleship's sunken hull. Trip begins amid Russian meddling investigation. A trip to Japan, South Korea, China, Vietnam and the Philippines, ending on November 14, takes him out of Washington at a time when he has been beset by several issues. He will attend the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Da Nang, Vietnam, make a state visit to Hanoi and end his trip with the Association of Southeast Asia Nations Summit in Manila. These include an intensifying federal investigation into Russian meddling in last year's election, New York's recovery from an attack earlier this week that killed 8 people, and debates over a Republican tax cut plan that, if approved by Congress, would be Mr. Trump's first major legislative victory. The trip began just days after his former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, was indicted in the investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election, and after his Attorney General Jeff Sessions faced Democratic calls to appear before Congress again to clarify his previous testimony about the campaign's Russia contacts. Court documents made public on Monday also disclosed that a Trump campaign foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos, pleaded guilty early last month to lying to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The documents cited a March 2016 meeting, when Mr. Trump was campaigning for the presidency, and attended by Mr. Trump and Mr. Sessions, in which Mr. Papadopoulos offered to help arrange a meeting between Mr. Trump and Vladimir Putin. Mr. Trump told the New York Times on Wednesday he was not angry at anybody about the case and there was nothing to suggest any collusion by his campaign and Russia. The Kremlin said on Friday there might be a meeting between Mr. Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin at an Asian Economic Summit next week. "We may have a meeting with Putin," Mr. Trump told Fox News. Abreuters topics: Federal government, government and politics, world politics, foreign affairs, United States, Australia, Philippines, Asia. First posted November 4, 2017 132,814.